Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. A video I got requested a lot was how I create my crochet patterns. So that's what I'm going to take you through the process of today. So the first thing I do is usually find some sort of inspiration. Either it's like an animal that I want to make, something I just can't find a pattern for, or in the case of today, which is something I've done previously, jellycat stuffies. So I chose this one here. It is vivacious vegetable eggplant. So I have some purple yarn and some green yarn, and hopefully in the end it turns out something like this. So obviously looking at these pictures, we have two parts. We have our purple body of the eggplant, or aubergine, whatever, and then we have the green stem part. So I'm gonna keep this in two pieces because I think that's just easier for me. We're gonna start with the body because then it will be easier to sew on the top after, and also to be able to size the top once we know how big the body's gonna be. So one common trend you'll probably see among crochet patterns is they usually all start, at least for amigurumi, with the magic circle or the chain 2, and you usually start with 6 single crochet into the magic ring, and then if you're making something dome or round shaped, you do a round of increases, then you do a single crochet followed by an increase, 2 followed by an increase, so on and so forth, and then you just do a bunch of rounds once you've got it to the size you want. So that's essentially what we're going to do today, because if you look at the eggplant, it's basically just like a giant dome shape. So I'm going to start with 8 in a magic circle because that's what I always start with, and then I'm going to do a round of increases and then a single crochet followed by an increase, and we'll see how big it gets. So this is 24, and I'm going to say this looks like a pretty solid starting size to me, so I think I'm going to do a couple rounds down and see how things are looking, and then we will start increasing slowly. So essentially what I'm getting at is making a pattern is basically knowing the basic principles of crochet and how most patterns work, because a lot of them you'll notice use similar techniques and methods to getting all their different shapes, and then just finding something that you want to make and testing it out and seeing what works. So I've done a couple rounds of 24 around, and I'm happy with how it's looking. So now we're going to go back and compare to the original and see if I think it's time to start increasing, or if I think it should just be a little longer before we start to make it wider. Then again, this is also your pattern and your interpretation, so don't feel like you have to make an exact replica of what you're trying to make. You can always switch it up and change it to something you like better, but everything's up to interpretation and however you like things to look. For me, since the eggplant starts to get wide pretty quick, I'm gonna say this is plenty. Now, the thing with increases is if you're making something symmetrical, like this eggplant, because it's symmetrical, it just goes like this, you're gonna wanna place your increases in even increments around. So this is where a little bit of math comes in. So we've done 24 single crochet around. So if we wanna do them in even increments, we're gonna have to do them in numbers that 24 is divisible by. So we could do every 2 for 12 increases. We could do every third, because 24 divided by 3 is 8. We could do 4, we could do 6, or we could do 12. So since this starts to get gradually wider, I'm torn currently between doing it every 12 just so it goes bigger on opposite ends, or if I should do every 6 and have it increase in size a little bit faster. Because obviously if we're doing an increase every 12, we're only technically adding 2 stitches every round. So we're gonna test it out. I'm gonna start with 12, see how that looks. And another thing, you can never be afraid to undo things, because you can literally just pull that yarn and your round's undone and you get a redo. So don't be afraid to do that as well. I did 3 rounds of increasing about halfway around. So I've added 6 stitches, so I'm up to a total of 30. And as you can see, it is starting to get wider, but I'm not sure if it's going fast enough for me. So I'm gonna try doing a couple more rounds, and if it starts to look significantly wider, then I'm happy with it. But otherwise, I think I'm gonna have to undo some and get it increasing a little bit quicker, because this isn't enough growth for me and it's getting fairly long already. I've done a couple more rounds of increases and I think it's definitely working, and I'm happy with how it's turning out, but I don't want to increase it too wide too fast. So I think I'm going to do a couple rounds straight, and then I need to decide kind of how big I want to make it, because obviously I could make it like this big, this big, this big. It kind of just depends. So I'm going to do a couple of straight rounds, and then I think I'm going to also work on the leaves because I would like to get those done, and I like sewing things on when the bottom is still open so I can always reach inside if I need to. Another big thing is make sure you write down what you're doing, because I've done this so many times and I've been like, oh, I'll remember it, and then I absolutely forget what I've done. So I just have this whole notebook that I've just filled with patterns and tests of things. As you can see, they get a little messy sometimes when you're testing things out and they don't work exactly how you want them, but it's so much better to at least have it written down somewhere than to have completely forgotten what you've done. So always write everything down. And this is what we're working with. It looks like Grimace. Okay, I did some more increasing and I'm happy with how things are looking. So I think it's time to move on to the stem I fully blanked out there. The stem, the leaves, and I can't get over how much this looks like grimace, but whatever. It'll look like an eggplant when we're done, hopefully. So if we pull up our picture again, you can see that the stem is kind of a weird shape. So it has the little like tube at the top and then the leaves. So what I'm thinking is 4 in a magic ring, so it can be as small as possible to do the little tube shape, because I don't think just a chain is going to be enough to have it look thick enough, and also for it to stand perfectly upright as that one does. And then after that, I think going in the front loops only, we should be able to try and make some leaves, but I'll take you along for the process. Okay, we have a little tube here, and if I put it on top of here, I feel like it looks about the right size to be proportionate. So now I'm gonna do some increases in the front loops only so that it'll stick straight out. Because when you work in the back loops only, it'll shrink things in. And if you work in the front loops only, it'll point things out. And obviously I wanna make it like a stem that goes out in like a circle. So I'm gonna work in the front loops only and do some increases to try and get it to about the size of, I'd say maybe 16 around, and then I'll do the points so that they kind of come down here on the eggplant. We've made our stem and the little circle around, and if I place it on here, you can see it's about the right size. So now I'm gonna make some points on it, and I'm still deciding how big I want them, and I'm gonna consult the picture quickly. Okay, so they're pretty long and pretty round. So what I'm thinking is maybe a triple crochet, and we're gonna see how that looks. So a triple crochet, pretty long, and then maybe a half double gives us a shape like this, if you can see that. Kind of just like a round little bump. Okay, what I've decided I'm gonna test out is I've done 2 double crochets into the same stitch followed by a slip stitch, and it gives little bumps like this. And then I think I'm gonna go around one more time to get them to the length that I want them. Okay, so the double crochet plan did not work. And this is just part of making a pattern. You're testing things out, some things work, some things don't. So what I've decided on that I like a little bit better is doing a chain and then single crocheting back up it. And it definitely gives me that longer, rounder shape that I was hoping for. So I'm gonna do it all the way around, and hopefully it looks all good once we put it on. I'm all done. It kind of looks like an octopus from the bottom, but we have our 8 little tendrils done. I'm really happy with how these turned out. They look flat, they look round, they look as close as I think I can get to the ones in there, and it fits right on top of here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sew this on, and I will be right back momentarily. Okay, we've sewn on our top. I'm very happy with how it looks, so I'm gonna do a couple more rounds down, and then we're gonna add the eyes. I have the length that I want, and I put some eyes in, and I'm deciding between placing them here or around up, just based on how I want it to match to the picture. But I feel like up here is a little too high, and there's gonna be too much dead space down here, so I'm thinking the lower of the 2 options. Eyes are in, I'm happy with the placement, and now it's time to start decreasing into the bottom. And for decreasing, I always follow the same principles as increasing, so I just do them in even increments so that it finishes off nice and round. So right now I have 36 single crochets, and I usually like to decrease in either multiples of 8 or 6, but obviously since I have 36, I'm not gonna be able to decrease in multiples of 8, so I'm gonna decrease in multiples of 6, so I'll do 4 and then a decrease to get down to 30, and so on and so forth until I have 6 left. Okay, we are almost done. I've just finished stuffing it, and final round, sewing it shut. Okay, everybody, we are officially done. This is my eggplant. Let's do a little side by side. Honestly, really happy with how this turned out. I feel like I could have maybe made it a little bit longer, but this is also part of the process. You just have to try things, and I usually make things a couple of times before I'm really happy with how they turn out. But yeah, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this in some way helpful. If you have any more specific questions, feel free to ask them in the comments down below. I would be happy to help, or even make another video, because I'm making patterns and trying things out all the time, so I'm sure you'll see a video like this again. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe. It really supports my channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya!